Oh no. Oh, I can't see. Oh, okay, there we are. Oh, you disappeared there. I got so worried.
Now I'm here.
Oh, are we live? Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to Ramadan FM. Sorry for the little blooper there. I'd just like to say Ramadan Kareem again to everyone. We are 10 days in already, Alhamdulillah. Yesterday, some people might have touched 10 days yesterday. For some people, it's the 10th Rosa today. The month is flying by. Let's try and make the most of every minute, every second. Subhanallah, the most beautiful, blessed month that we get every year. Today with me on the show, I have Sister Uzma. Uzma is a holistic transformational life coach. And we have chosen to talk about the topic healing from trauma. The reason why I picked this topic, just gonna let you all know why I chose this topic. It's a very, very close topic to my heart, and I also feel that there is a huge stigma around this topic. When people don't address traumas in their life, they don't realize the massive impact that it leaves, and it affects the rest of their lives and how they function. And I think it's such an important topic for us all to touch on. And so, inshallah, we've got Sister Uzma here who is going to enlighten us on this topic today. So, Sister Uzma, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about yourself, what it is that you do.
No worries. Yes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, everyone. Ramadan Kareem to you all. It's absolutely wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Sister Humera. Thank you for having me. So my name is Uzma Naqvi, and I'm a holistic transformational life coach. My mission is to help women, particularly those who have experienced any kind of deep emotional pain, whether it's from trauma, whether it's from loss, whether it's from relationship struggles or self-doubt. And really, that's to help them break free from their own past and to step into a life that is filled with peace and confidence and purpose. We all deserve that. And it's also the pathway for us to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala authentically as well. So my work is very holistic approach. So it means that we're not just focused on one aspect of your life. It really does incorporate the whole of you. There's more. There's more to us than just physical being. Although physical being is, so important. We have to take care of our physical well-being. But there is other aspects to us as well. There's the emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical. So my work incorporates all of that. Because many of us hold on to pain without really realizing how much it shapes our thoughts, our relationships, even our bodies, absolutely everything. Literally every decision we make, the way we see ourselves, the way we think other people see us, all of that is, completely guided by what we hold within ourselves. So my job is to guide my clients through faith-based inner healing, to shift their mind, to shift their heart, help them with emotional regulation, and get them to a place where they can feel aligned and authentic internally. So yeah, the only other thing I'd say is that my work is not at all surface level. So if somebody comes to me with a trigger, I'll be like, okay, but where is the root cause of that? Like what caused this in the first place? So what I want to do is I want to get to the root cause so that the trigger in itself is a byproduct. It will heal in itself. So it's not surface level fixes. I really take my clients very, very deep into who they are, what their original story is, what happened, and how that impacted them, and how that created certain energetical subconscious blocks and things like that. So I give them tools to really release that and guide them with lots of different practices to self-discovery and
So there's a
self-actual.
lot of inner work, and I think it all comes down to use obviously as Muslims connecting, finding the root cause, like you said. And I think one of your webinars, Sister Uzma, was, and I just saw it, and I just thought it was so interesting, was called The Universe Within.
Yes. Yeah. So that's one of my signature programs. It's got many different parts to it, but the main one is it takes over a year to work through that. And that's basically changing your entire life from scratch. Like we kind of rebuild your whole
Wow.
being, and we go through the healing process, and it's basically reshaping, re-evaluating your whole life. Like how do you live, and how do you think, and how does that impact you, and what has happened to you so far, and how are you going to move forward. So a lot of us, unfortunately, get stuck in this state of mind that this happened to me, therefore I can't do this now, or my life is like this because this happened, or they did this to me, therefore my life is like this, and if this didn't happen, then my life wouldn't be like this. And this state is very powerless. It's like giving up on the fact that I can do nothing about it now. It's because it happened. But my work is really about understanding what happened, but then how do we use the exact thing that happened to launch forward in life and not stay stuck in that whole thing. So
It it's very easy to, I think, get stuck in that rut and think that you're identified by what's happened to you. And I'd
absolutely.
say from a lot of people that I've met in my life, and I think also from my own experiences, it was always easy to feel like, oh, but this happened to me, and
Mm.
now this is what I'm going to stick by because I went through this. And then it takes a lot of strength to actually be like, it's all right. I went through that. It was a trial. It shaped me. And now
Yeah.
I'm going to move forward from that. I'm going to use that to be a better version of myself, and
Yes.
work on myself.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I think one of the things that we end up doing is we rationalize why we behave certain ways. So I will rationalize why I did whatever behavior I did, and I've always got a reason for it. Like nobody does anything without a reason. And so when we give our mind the reason, and usually our mind gives us the behaviors because it's trying to protect us from hurt and from whatever is going on in our lives. So because we've rationalized it, we've made sense of it, logically only, but internally it's not aligned with who we are. It's not the right way to go about things. So the more we end up justifying our behaviors, the more we're okay with it, but actually it's got nothing to do with the truth. And actually we're basically running away from ourselves even more. We're kidding ourselves even more. So the more we do this, the more inauthentic we become, and we kind of operate mainly on ego, which is not us at all. It kind of takes us away from who we really are.
And I just, before we move on to the next question, Sister Uzma, I just want to relate to that. And I think you've made such a valid point there, because there's certain times where we become used to certain behaviors because of what we've been through. So it'll be a trigger, and suddenly you put on this defense mechanism because you're like, I'm not liking what's being said to me right now. So all of a sudden, you're putting up this front, but you're maybe that child that went through whatever they went through in childhood. So now that child is coming back like, oh no, they're
Yes.
making me feel like that, and I'm not going to allow it. But I think it's so important to notice those triggers and
Yeah.
address them. So moving on to the next question, Sister Uzma, just for our viewers to get more of an understanding, what is trauma? Okay, so trauma comes in different forms. When somebody hears trauma, they would relate it to, say, something physical, but obviously the physical can leave a lasting mental effect as well. What's a mental trauma that's not tangible? And also there's a few questions branched into one. So it's, how does one recognize that they
Hmm.
have experienced trauma in their life that's not been addressed? What are the signs and symptoms that they'd start to notice?
Yeah.
And how as a holistic coach would you identify someone who's suffering from trauma?
Yeah, really powerful question. And I think first thing I want to say about this is that trauma is not just an event that happened itself, but it's how it was experienced and how it was internalized by any individual. So this, there could be six siblings and all went through the very similar upbringing, same environment, but each one of them have had a different reaction to whatever happened in that family. So really is about how that person was impacted and how they internalized it. And it's not necessarily, and this is also a really important point as well, that it's not necessarily the major traumatic experiences like war, like what we're seeing right now in the Middle East, or it's not like violence necessarily, it's not, abuse necessarily. It can be seemingly very trivial matters that somebody looks at and thinks, especially in our culture, we don't even see them as a thing. Like, these things don't really make a big difference, but they do to an inside of a person. So, for example, being compared to siblings, saying, look, your brother's always manages to finish this before you. Why can't you get it? Like, or being forced to share when you don't want to share your own toy. It's like sharing is kind and sharing is caring, so you have to give this. And really small matters where like you parents care and they want the children to eat the best, so they're forcing the child to eat. That could be one of the things. And one of the major ones is basically where you're left with emotions without a support network, a safe environment where you can express yourself, or having emotionally unavailable parents or caregivers, or if there's a tension between parents, or divorce takes place or anything like that. All of these are just examples of how trauma can occur in the first place. And it literally shapes our core beliefs. It shapes our emotional regulation. It shapes our physical well being. It shapes our everything. And through that, we can either, so many things can happen, thousands of things can happen, but we can become hyper independent, where we've internalized it in the way that no one is here to love me, therefore I'm just going to love myself. And that can lead into being a narcissistic, for example, a personality. Or you can be one of those if overthinkers, and that's what most people fall into, where you're replaying conversations of even 10 months ago over and over and over again in your head, and you're overthinking and over analyzing, and you can't even sleep because you're constantly thinking about the things that have happened or things that are happening or how people are behaving. You might end up people pleasing, so you're going out of your way and doing extra stuff to seem like the hero. You're coming across as though I'm the one who always helps, and I want people to validate. I want people to tell me that I'm a nice person. So we're basically trying to get our needs met. That's at the core of it. There are certain needs that were not met as a child. So now we go through all of these rounds and bends to try and get those needs met. So we might end up people pleasing. We don't actually want to people please, but that's just become our way, because we get the attention, because we get the praise, because somebody says, thank you so much for doing that. And to hear that, it fills that need that we're
Agreed.
that's hollow and that's left.
100%. I think
Yeah.
it's the validation that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I think so many of us go through that in life, where because as children we haven't received it,
Exactly.
and not
Yeah.
realizing that, I think one of the things that really, really stays, like, has, like, touches me the most is when you've been through something as a child. It's shocking how it comes out in your adult life,
Yeah.
and it comes out in relationships, and it comes out in your marriage, and then it comes out when you're being a mother to your children, and you just go back to, oh my god, like, I didn't get this, so now I want it for my children.
Exactly.
I didn't get the stable home that I wanted, so I want it for I didn't get my mom or dad's emotional love and support, so now I want to make sure I give this child everything. It's amazing how it stays with you,
Yeah, it's all part of the growth, and it's all part of Allah's plan as well. I mean, we don't see it like that, but every single trauma that we ever experience is basically an opportunity for growth. Whenever you come across anyone in your life, especially people who hurt you, they are basically projecting back to you the missing piece within yourself. So
amazing.
they're reflecting back to you what you have. So let's say somebody's abandoned you, let's say somebody's rejected you, and you feel the pain of that rejection. You're like, how could they do this to me? I poured 100% of myself into this person and they've left me. How could they do that? And you don't understand it. It hurts. But instead of and of course, like, hurt is valid in that circumstance. You're supposed to feel the hurt, so not to bulldoze over what you're feeling, but really to understand and dissect the message out of what you're getting out of that. When a person abandons you or rejects you, they're not abandoning you and rejecting you. They are showing you that you yourself have abandoned yourself and you've rejected parts of your own self, and now this person has highlighted something to you. So instead of seeing them as the villain, and yes they are, but putting them aside, really come back and focus in on yourself to understand how what is Allah trying to teach me about myself in this situation. What is it that I've got to learn about myself? So there's so many different types of ways that it comes out. We lack boundaries, we dismiss our own feelings, we worry, we have anxiety, we feel inadequate and not enough in so many different circumstances. So and these different types of things that happen in our childhood, they come out in different. So let's say if it's rejection trauma. Basically, rejection trauma is when there is a deep pain that's experienced by a child when they are being excluded, or they feel unloved, or they feel undervalued, or mostly by authoritative figures, especially by parents or peers or teachers or caregivers. And these experiences basically solidify a belief inside of the mind that I am not worthy of love. I'm unworthy of love. At a very young age, if you've held on to that belief, it is inevitably going to come in out of your relationship, and anything you touch in your life is going to be basically dictated by that belief system. And with that, one of the first things you're going to start doing from a very early age is start talking negatively to your own self. You are constantly assuming that other people are thinking the worst about you because you think the worst about yourself. And you don't even think you're thinking the worst about yourself because logically you've already rationalized it and it makes sense to you. But it's not the truth. It's stemming from a hurt that was caused, and it's like a need that wasn't met. So if you could go back and heal that, you would never speak with yourself like that. Like a healed person or somebody on the journey of healing would never speak to themselves in a negative way. But a person who's not healed will consistently tell themselves, and a lot of the times we don't even notice what we're saying to ourselves. And again, it's like you can either, go out of your way to gain approval from other people at the expense of your own needs, at the expense of what it is that you need right now. You have a huge difficulty in trusting people, so you hold back from sharing your true self or your true feelings because you fear that you won't be accepted and they're going to reject you. You have a low self-worth, so there's a persistent feeling of like not enoughness. Nobody's ever going to feel like I'm enough.
Worthy
And if you
enough,
think
yeah.
about all these things, you're gonna struggle in relationships. If in forming relationships, in maintaining healthy relationships, in having meaningful connections, or having long-term relationships where you can actually you're thriving in a relationship because it's based on fear, because it's based on the fact that I need to hold on to you. I need you to prove to me that you love me so I don't feel rejected anymore because I've been rejected all my life. So you're the person who's going to have to fix me by staying with me and by making sure that I don't ever feel that feeling again. But how fragile is that to place your sense of safety emotionally on someone else? Because let's say they are the best person in the world. If nothing else happens and they don't cause you any pain, which is not true because everyone fails at some point or other, but they could die, and then what? So you can't have anything external to hold on to for your sense of self because it's gonna collapse at some point, and then you will face even worse rejection than before.
So,
So
when I obviously talked about asked about the symptoms, so these are all the symptoms that a person would notice within themselves: the people pleasing, the constant approval, like wanting approval, and I think one
lack
of
of
the
trust,
lack of,
anxiety,
yeah, all of these,
depression,
yeah.
nightmare, panic attacks. These are like some physical symptoms as well. You get stomach distress, you get headaches, you have unexplained pain in your body because all these emotional pains are basically stored inside of your body. So essentially, there is energy that's the negative energy now is created certain patterns, and it's now in different parts of your body. So often people have like this shoulder pain,
Hmm.
and it's like they're carrying the world on their shoulders. That you see some people like kind of holding themselves up like this because the weight is so heavy, and they think it's because they're tired, they think it's because of general exhaustion of the work they're having to do. But actually at the core of it, they are holding so much emotional baggage that they've never expressed, that they've never talked about, they've been never allowed to or had a platform, or they don't even have single person. It's so tragic when you put it that way, that most people don't even have one single person in their life where they can truly express themselves and be able to release like some of these things. So it causes all sorts of different things that actually showcase that this is what you're going through. If you have, for example, betrayal trauma, which is the core of it, I'm worthless, is what your belief is, and no one can be trusted. That person doubts everything. If there's two people standing in the corner and they're talking amongst themselves, they are naturally going to assume that they're talking about them. So there's a lack of trust. There's unpredictable mood swings. One minute you're high, next minute you're dropping right to the lows. There's a struggle in intimacy in terms of relationships, in terms of like being able to even have intimate conversations, because there's a fear of betrayal at core of everything you do. So there are so many different uh, symptoms that come out of this, like sudden irrational outbursts of anger or tears. You might end up crying so quickly, or not at all. You blocked yourself completely. Like now you don't want to show any
Any
emotions because
emotions?
anytime you did show emotions, you were rejected. So now you've concluded that I'm gonna shut off emotions. That person becomes an avoidant, and that causes so much hurt and so much pain in a marriage, in with your children, with any relationship, because you've now closed yourself off. The real you is defensive. Even before anything happens, you're already at the defense because you've got to protect yourself because you've been hurt that much and neglected that much, emotionally at a young age, that it's no longer a viable solution for you that you put yourself out there in a vulnerable position where somebody can exploit you. So you just would shut everything off. But human beings need each other. We need to have connections, and we need to have, be vulnerable. They are actually the core of any healthy relationship, is that you're able to be vulnerable with each other. But even in between husband and wife, how much do we hold ourselves back? We swallow our words because we daren't say, either with the fear of them leaving us, or the repercussions, or the fact that it will backfire in a whole different way. So it comes out in many, many, many different ways.
Wow. I don't know about the listeners, but I think everything you're saying, I think it's just it's really, really, it's hitting me, because I'm just thinking of myself and everyone else out there, in the conversations that I have with people. It's big. It's big.
Yes.
It's gonna, if you're not addressing trauma, guys, it's
Yeah.
massive. So
Honestly, like I would say, a lot of the times people think, like, when you hear about coaching and when you hear about these kind of things, people think
there's a
that
stigma, there's a big
there is a stigma.
taboo, and you
Yes.
know, honestly, sisters, I want to touch on this. Like, it's a bit annoying, because when you try and talk to people about it, I dislike the phrase, "It's all in your head."
Yes.
It's all in your head.
Oh,
Snap out of it. This is
yeah.
life. Get on
Yeah.
with it. And I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest times, this is coming up now, because I'm just remembering, there was a certain period where I was going through something massive,
Mm.
and I was trying to just digest what I'm going through. And then you also have children then, because you're then trying to look at the well-being of your children. So you're trying to, build, make sure that they're okay. So you're having to now suppress all your emotions. You're trying
Yeah.
to block everything out. And you're like, okay, I need to get my children sorted. I need to get on with life now. This has happened. But then when you open up to certain people, and the answer that you get is, listen, this is life. Get on with it.
Mm.
Snap. And I'm just like, no, but surely I can't just be feeling this way and stuck in these emotions, and there's something deeper that I've not addressed.
Yeah.
I've not grieved, or I've not given myself the chance to say, you've got a lot of people that don't cry. Please cry. It's okay
Yeah.
to cry.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
okay to show emotions. That's one of the biggest things, like you said as well, when people block out emotions. Being vulnerable, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being vulnerable. And I think that's where a lot of people think that, oh no, I don't want to show my soft side, I don't want to show emotions. But I guess you're being authentic to yourself. There's nothing wrong with showing emotions. It's
Yeah.
not a weakness. It's, in fact, I think it's strength.
Yes, but I think at the same time, and I totally hear you in what you're saying. And this stigma is one of the biggest problems that I face in my work a lot of the times, because in our culture, there is this privacy that you don't discuss these kind of matters.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Even if they eat you up alive, you just swallow it all up, and it's got to be, inside of you. You don't ever show to anybody else. I think that's such a wrong way. Already that person's riddled with so much internally, and then on top of that there is this pressure to not speak, because there's an image that we've got to uphold out there, and we can't ever have that shaking in any way, shape, or form. But aside from that, for people who have any kind of trauma where they've trapped their feelings and they no longer be vulnerable because that's their coping mechanism, it is almost impossible for that person to ever come to a conclusion that I need to let down my guards, I need to not be defensive, and I need to just speak, because their survival tool is to block. So for them to even come to a realization, they would have to there has to be a willingness to understand why their behavior is the way that it is, and for that they have to recognize the behavior in the first place. So it's a very systematic approach of even understanding, and most people are oblivious to their own behavior because we are so fixated on everyone else and what they're doing and how they're making me feel, that I'm always in the victim stage. I'm always in the place of, my life has turned out like this because of this person and that person, and because they did and she did and he did. And when we're stuck in that cycle of they, she, he, d, that whatever, whoever this person or these people are, we will never truly be able to look within and actually derive anything out of it of value, because we will remain in that cycle of, this is life, this is how it is, and all of the same symptoms will continue to be a part of you. You can't concentrate, you can't make decisions, all your decisions are completely flawed and based on hurt. They're based on protecting yourself. So they don't come from an authentic version of yourself. You pull away from people. You don't accept help and advice when you need it. You are constantly fearing unfairly being criticized. This is, these are the symptoms of injustice trauma, for example, where somebody might have been bullied or discriminated or unfairly treated, or, unavailability in terms of emotions and things. So many things put a big question mark under your self-worth. And if we, as beings of Allah, somebody who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you have the potential to be ashraful makhluq, question our sense of self, then how far are we from the truth of who we actually are? How far are we than to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually created us? If you look at the story of a human being, the story of a human being is that when Prophet Adam alayhi salam was created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set him aside after creating him for quite some time. And then eventually he brought him and he blew his spirit inside of him. And then he said to the malaika, once I blew my spirit, I fashioned him, then I blew my spirit inside of him. When I blew my spirit inside of him, then you all bow down to him. And that's why Shaitan retaliated. And a lot of people, most people, fundamentally miss this very important point, that he did not ask the malaika to bow down to Adam alayhi salam just when he created him. He asked him to bow down after he breathed his spirit inside of him. This is what made Adam alayhi salam so valuable. And who are we but the children of Adam? We also carry the spirit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within us. There is no way that we are unworthy. But the reason we feel unworthy, the reason we feel like we can't ever fit in and nobody likes us and we doubt ourselves and we're constantly in fear, is because of the trauma that we have experienced. It is incumbent upon us to get to the deeper aspect of where this is stemming from, because honestly, wallahi al-azim, it is keeping you away not only from your own self, but actually it's keeping you away from your Lord. You can't ever
this is what brings me to that next question, which you've just already touched upon now, that when someone hasn't healed from trauma, does this cause barriers in their growth, in their spiritual, in their relationships? But I think one of the main things that you just addressed was that it affects their it causes a barrier between them and getting closer to Allah.
Yeah,
because they've not even addressed,
who,
they've not even recognized it.
Yeah, because the important question is, who is connecting with Allah? Like, who are you? Like, my job is to get you to meet yourself, and we're not ourselves right now. When we're in trauma, that's not who we are. We're just in a reactive mode. We're just basically pretending to be someone to protect ourselves because of the hurt that's been caused to us previously. So that's not even us. None of, like, 95% of everything we do comes from our subconscious mind. And if our subconscious mind is carrying pain and trauma of the past, then that's all we are. Only 5% of us is conscious, where we might be learning new things and we're getting new information and, all of that. Rest of everything we do comes from our subconscious mind. And it is our job to find out what it is that we carry in our subconscious mind. So yes, absolutely, it causes barriers. It colors and it shapes absolutely everything that we do. Every decision we make, how we view ourselves, how we think other people are viewing ourselves, how we connect with ourselves, how we connect with others. It taints everything because of what you carry inside of you. Every single one of us has deep, undeniable needs. Whether we recognize those needs or we don't recognize those needs, whether we've talked about them, we've never talked them, we don't even know they're there, it doesn't matter. From the moment we are born, we arrive with an innate expectation that these needs will be met. Think of a baby when they are born, completely vulnerable, yet with unshakable trust that love, comfort, security will be provided. That's how babies are. But then life happens. And some of us never receive that love and that security and that validation that we desperately need from a very, very young age. So, and some of us have to fight for the scraps of attention or affection, or, and what the message the child is getting is that love is conditional. I'm not lovable. I'm lovable if and when I behave like this. If I perform this way, through the reward and punishment, which is so prevalent in our communities. Children, this is how we do it. We threaten our children. I'll take this away from you, or I'll not take you this place, or there's so much of that going on. This is reward and punishment. And some of us are still hitting our children. Like, I don't know where we are and I don't know how we're still there, but that's still happening. And
Oh man.
think about the amount of trauma you are carrying inside of yourself to justify that you can actually raise your hand on your own child. Like that's how much you've lost that whole trajectory of being able to decipher what's okay and what's not okay. And the reason that happens is in our communities there are certain things that we've normalized that have become okay because they've happened so long. In
Mm-hmm.
Urdu, they have a saying that "वो तो है ही ऐसा, वो तो
Yeah.
है ही ऐसी." We'll just
You know,
there's
when the one of the quotes, the word, the sentence comes out, oh, but men are like that.
yeah,
It's
exactly. Men
okay.
are just
You've got
like
to deal
that.
with them. That's men. That's
That's just
life.
men.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
really?
And how terrible
Yeah.
that Allah gave you that kind of faculty, all the senses. He gave you a heart, He gave you a mind, He gave you, and on top of all of that, He gave you free will. He said, you know what? I give you all of that to make sense of life, and then I'm going to give you free will so you can make a choice. It is entirely up to you. But guess what? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. You're going to come back to me, and I will talk to you about everything you've done. So when we live obliviously, we are not living. We are nowhere near even recognizing. We quote Ashraf al Makhluk everywhere we go because it makes us feel good about ourselves. But we're nowhere near it because we don't even know ourselves. We're kind of literally separated from who we are at a true need. So basically, when these needs are not met, that's when these different things start coming up, right? We perform, we get love. We behave a certain way equals love. We behave a different way or behave the way that we want to behave, then equals, I'm going to get punishment. And please don't get me wrong. I am in no way, shape, or form. I'm a mother of four myself. Discipline is hugely important. Like I'm not saying become one of those parents who don't discipline, but the way that you can discipline a child from a very young age, it never needs to be hostile. And we've got our children to a stage where unless we shout, unless we scream, unless we give them a backhander, they don't even want to hear you. That's what we've trained them to do. That they weren't like that. They weren't born like this. So basically what I'm saying is when it comes to our core needs being unmet, if they go unmet, we don't just stop needing them. Instead, we learn subconscious ways to fill that void that was there from a very young age. So this often leads to so much pain, so much dysfunction, and cycles of sabotage. It's unbelievable. Some of us, again, we people please, we bend over backwards for love, for affection, for approval, for validation, and all sorts of things.
I think, like you've mentioned, not being kind to yourselves, and when you said self sabotage, I think one of the things is, and because I'm in the fitness industry and as a personal trainer, is the binge eating.
Yes.
Because out of that stress and stuff, people lean towards comfort. People lean towards food.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's so big that, you've got to address that. It's not like you said, Uzma, it's not just the physical. There's so much within it. We're a whole universe within. I was watching this one video yesterday, in fact, that just gave me goosebumps, that the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the whole world, the whole universe, it's all in one pattern. So we're all in this circular motion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's even the way how we all do tawaf of the Kaaba.
Yeah.
We're all in this anti-clockwise rotation. But that's not only in the outer. We're like that within, because the way our blood circulates as well is in this 360 degrees motion circulating around our bodies. And I was like, I just thought about it and I thought, wow, that's massive. So every single thing, from whether it's the tiniest of creature or plants, is in that same pattern. The creatures in the oceans and whatever's out there in the whole universe, in space, the galaxy, everyone's in this one pattern, this circular motion. And I thought, wow, we have that within us. It's embedded in our bodies. So we've got the whole universe within us, which is massive. So you're not just this being that, looks at themselves as a body like, oh yeah, I'm going through this and I'm just going to be okay with it. And, people are making me feel this way. It's okay. It's okay what I'm going through. If you're feeling a certain way, recognize those triggers, recognize what it is that triggers you, and with those symptoms, obviously there is something there that needs addressing, and then take the help that you need. I honestly, I can't, you know what, it's just too much.
Yeah.
This conversation for me is just like, is
But you
giving me
know
goosebumps.
what you're saying is so accurate. And actually, my entire work began from one quote of Ali ibn Abi Talib, where he said, "Your sickness is from you, but you do not perceive it, and your remedy is within you, but you do not sense it. You presume you are a small entity, but within you is enfolded the entire universe. Therefore, you have no need to look beyond yourself. What you seek is within you, if only you reflect." This literally changed my life. Like my whole work is based on this quote.
Wow.
It started off with that, and the year-long program that I do is called "The Universe Within You" from this quote. And you're absolutely right that we're part of this gigantic system, and we matter within that system. And how we put ourselves out and what we do with our lives matters. With Allah didn't even create a leaf without
Without
a
purpose.
cause, without a reason. How can it be that the creation that he says is the highest of all? He just randomly created and then set us free. And then he said, "There's nothing like feel the way you're gonna feel, be the way you're gonna be, behave the way you're gonna behave, and then you'll die." That's the story of an atheist. That's the story of somebody who doesn't have belief, perhaps. It's okay for them to think, yeah, we live here, do what you want, have lots of fun because you only live YOLO,
Live
and
once,
then
yeah.
you die. That's not the way that we're supposed to be. If we're not awakened beings as Muslims, as the followers of the truth, as the ones who knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then how is there any hope that we would ever be able to connect with anything or help the world see the truth of what Islam actually means? So I think that for us as beings, as soon as any trigger that we have, any trigger that we have, whether we're getting angry so quickly, whether we feel like we have to go out of our way, we're burning ourselves out, we're emotionally drained, we're pouring 100% of ourselves, we're not seen, we're not heard, we're not valued in our families or within our relationships, whatever the cause might be, whatever the trigger is, that trigger is all it is a call to action. It's a
Yep.
messenger. And if you don't see it as a messenger, you get defensive. All you're doing is trying to protect yourself and you lose the message. Your job is not to lose the message. It's not to get caught up with the pain aspect of it. Of course, that's real. But to drop down into your heart and feel, understand what it is that he's trying to teach you. And for that, you might need to get structured help from a coach, perhaps, or whatever. Don't feel like this is something I don't a lot of people think this is a luxury. I do not see coaching as a luxury. Honestly, it changed my life, and everything I do stems from my own pain. Like I came from a very very painful background. Like it was just one thing after another. There was so many things that happened in my life, and it drove me to a point of I was forced to wake up. I had no choice but to wake up. And alhamdulillah that I did, because living obliviously, pretending to not even know, is far worse than actually acknowledging and going through a period of pain where you're having to recalibrate and reconstruct your story that you've written about yourself to now be somebody who you're,
Honestly, I just like absolutely admire. I've got to say, I just admire you so much right now that with whatever you've been through, you've now taken the steps to help other women. And for them to overcome whatever they're going through. Please, 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 guys, I urge you, honestly, if you've, everything me and Sister Uzma have been speaking about, everything Sister Uzma has said, if you recognize these symptoms and you're holding back, remember it's going to impact your life, but then also generations to come, your children. Because when I think back to the cultural mindset from my mom's parents and all of that that's come down, if we don't break that cultural kind of expectation, the way the culture thinks now, it's never going to change. So teach your daughters, your sons, your children, it's okay to get help. Life happens. We go through certain things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us. We are in this world to be tested. We're going to go through trials. Those trials shape you, and you're not just here for absolutely no reason. There's a massive purpose. And Sister Uzma, can I just add something I haven't talked about because I've been so in awe of everything you've been saying. As a personal trainer, when I'm training clients, and this is one thing that just it shocked me, because I'm not just there training them for their physical. I get a lot of clients that come in. I'm spending that 1 hour with them, say twice a week. you get to know them on a deeper level.
Yeah.
There's so much that they come in and they offload. And I've sort of, sometimes I'm just like, oh, I feel like a therapist now, because I'm having this conversation with this
Yeah.
person. I'm actually trying to help them, like, listen, after you've lifted those weights, you're going to feel amazing. You're going to walk out of here. Your emotions are going to be so balanced. So I think for me, with what I was going through at a time of my life, training came in for me then, because I was looking for a way to, I was like, I know there's triggers. I know something's not right, but I need to look for an outlet. And that was, for me, training and exercising and fitness, because obviously the research has been done, but obviously from myself as well, having experienced it,
Yeah.
fitness, it has such a
Oh gosh.
profound effect on your mental health. You're
100%.
so balanced. So, and I mentioned this in one of my talks last week as well with Sister Davina, that, you know, I'll walk into the gym with certain emotions, but when I walk out of there, my reaction to a certain situation flips. So if
Yeah.
someone's said something to me and I'm like, okay, I'm feeling like I'm not getting a good vibe. Okay, Humera, don't respond now. It's fine. Don't respond now. Don't open that WhatsApp message. Go to the gym, do your workout. And when I come out of there, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm calm. Like, that's not affecting me. I know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So guys, training, it's a massive as well.
Absolutely.
When you're going through certain stuff, it really, really helps. It's not only the physical, like I've said before, it's your mental health as well. It balances you. It balances your hormones. It balances your emotions. And then we've got, so
Yeah, no,
alhamdulillah.
I couldn't agree more. You know, we're like I said, we're not just one-dimensional beings. Physical, our body is the portal that's carrying us, right? The soul within is basically carried by this body. So if we don't look after that, how is any nothing can happen really. So it's so important, aside from the fact that it carries our spirit, but other than that, your everything physically is directly linked with everything mentally, and vice versa as well. So whatever you're going through mentally, you will see the repercussions of that. Like I said earlier, like aches and pains that you have, there is trapped emotions, it's trapped energy that needs an outlet. So if you can find something as healthy as, you know, first of all, understanding what you eat, because a lot of times we eat because we're not actually hungry, we're eating because we're comforting ourselves. It's to get over the emotion. And now we've associated certain food, it's just like we've associated a cake with a birthday. It's just a done thing. Like we have to have a cake when there's a birthday. But who said
Exactly.
that happened? But it happened somewhere, and now it's the thing. In the same way, in our bodies, there is a certain emotion, or certain time of the month, or certain thing happens. The minute that feeling starts to erupt, we'll reach for a certain type of a food. And this is deeply connected with what we've used as our distraction, as our coping mechanism, as to get over that emotion. It's like you often see in the movies as well. When the girl's had a heartbreak, she comes home, she drops herself on the couch, she gets a tub of ice cream, she has all the cookies next to her, and she's watching a movie and she's sobbing. Now, like, you know, when you're heartbroken, you've got to have something sweet, because otherwise, how the hell are you going to fix yourself? So these associations, you know, sound funny, but actually, we end up eating based on how we're feeling. We're not actually eating because we're hungry. And there are many different types of hungers, but the really most important thing is what the nutrition your body actually requires, and that's going to have a really big effect on how you're feeling mentally as well. But also intertwined with that, working on your inner self, like going through a process where you understand your traumas, you understand where this is coming from. If people are, you know, if you've noticed yourself, and we wouldn't admit these things, but if you're lying to people, if you're dropping hints instead of saying the direct message, if you're guilt tripping others, if you're self sacrificing to come across like a hero, if you're being passive aggressive, if you're giving somebody the silent treatment, if you're emotionally pushing yourself or emotionally pushing others, if you're trying to control everything around you, if you're making fake compliments to people because you know you want them to like you, if you're trying to fit in where you don't actually fit in, if you're trying to be seductive, if you're trying to make false promises, if you're doing favors for people when you actually don't want to, if you're acting like a victim, if you're making threats, any of these and thousands of others are literal messages to tell you that there are inner unresolved issues, and you're just trying to get your needs met, but you're doing it in a background wrong way. And you need to learn how to release this need, or how to fulfill it in a very healthy way. Oh, I thought I
Amazing.
paused in between. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. No, no, no.
Okay.
We heard
Yeah.
everything. Yep.
Okay.
Sister Uzma, we've got about a minute left. Oh,
Oh my
I wish we
days.
had another whole hour for this topic. I think with all the questions that I had here, we've kind of branched into everything anyway. Just to wrap up, what's the advice that you give all our listeners what's the last advice if they don't have the means to get in touch with you or with any other, and they're not able to? So if they don't have the means or able to have access to you or afraid of reaching out, how do you advise them to start off within
Yeah.
themselves first?
No, that's a really, really important question, because, and I understand it because I've been there myself. Like when I first, started this journey, I was so reluctant. Like how can I sit there and talk about my life to somebody else? And I get it. I totally understand that, especially for some women and especially from our culture, reaching out for support can feel very, very overwhelming. Whether it's financial reasons, fears, or anything else. But here's what I want every woman to listen to. You do not have to suffer in silence. You are not alone. There are millions of people out there that are going through the same thing, and healing is absolutely possible. And not only is it possible, it's your birthright. You should heal. And the first step to dealing with trauma is acknowledgement. At least get to a stage where you understand that some of the things that I do
Sister
are
Uzma,
not
I
okay.
think it's gonna. Oh, can we
We're gone.
add another? Are we can't really. Oh,
Oh,
it cut
oh, it's
off.
okay.
Oh, Sister Uzma, I need to get you back on the show. Oh my
Bless you.
God, I actually thought it's 10 to 11. I wish it was another 10 minutes. Oh.